All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the other apostles, the elder bishops, the elders of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations unto the Akim I heard pushing his gospel in truth and in sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is your brother Quana Wath, come back at you, Lord will, with that edifying lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing. It's straight to the point, Lord willing is edifying. In this lesson, right, I was really, I've been meditating on, just health lately, through the spirit, because we live basically in a world, right, that, everything, right, from the air to the ground that we walk on, to the food that we eat, to the things that we touch, right, is ultimately poisonous, right, and can harm us, right? We know that Esau, Edom, right, which we know is the self-proclaimed so-called white man, the physical counterpart of the spiritual demon Satan, right? He's ultimately the one that's in charge, right? And he's been spraying chemicals on our food, planting, seeds, right, for plants that ultimately are giving you seedless, dead fruits, right? And these are the things that we ultimately eat, right? These are the things that were ultimately given unto us, right? Which, when you go back to the curses, right, we would ultimately, as the scriptures say, that we would eat our bread defiled amongst the Gentiles. That's part of the curses, so that's something that we have to deal with. But nonetheless, right, Esau is the wicked, right? So he's polluted everything, right, destroyed everything, right? And then we have to ultimately, in the midst of a world, right, where everything is harmful for you, right, as far as what you eat, right, we're trying to ultimately, be healthy, man. We can't just, we can't neglect our health, right? Even though, we again, living under a damn devil who has given us nothing but garbage, right, to eat, because we got to take care of this temple, man, right? The temple being our bodies, right? We got to take care of these bodies. The Holy Spirit doesn't want to dwell, right? It's not going to dwell in a filthy, destroyed, body, a destroyed temple, a defiled temple, so we got to take care of this body. We got to take care of this temple, man, and how do we do that, right? By ultimately trying our best, right, to eat healthy, right? Don't eat no fast food, don't eat no fucking, bullshit processed food, right? If you can, right, make your meals at home, right? Get the ingredients, make it at home, so you know what's being put in it, right? The proper seasonings and so on and so forth, right? That you should be doing it like that, right? If it's possible, right, within your means, because again, we're in captivity, right? Not everybody's situation, right, can you ultimately do that. So if you can, right, that's the best procedure, man, is to make your food at home, buy all the products you can, as much organic products as you can, and do it that way, man, but first and foremost, right, to, for that healing, right, for that health, right, we got to pray to Yahweh Shemel Shai, right? Because ultimately, Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai, right, that, is the physician, right? Because he's going to bring away healing in his wings, right? Let's go ahead and grab that real quick, right? It says, Malachi 4 and verse 2, right? And, yep, I'll start at verse 1. It said, "For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven." And this is going into when, the World War III, right? When those ICBM nuclear missiles, right, are ultimately utilized, when they fire off those, the Orshanik, right? The Minuteman II, right? The what do they call it? The 61, right? China's 61, right? The Russian Orshnik, right? The American Minuteman 2 or 3, right? The Sarmat 2 missile, Russia's Sarmat 2 missile. Those are all ICBM nuclear missiles, which are ultimately being mass produced by, the countries that I just named off. But there's many more nations, right, that are ultimately that have nuclear power, That's when those weapons are going to be utilized, man, right? Is in this time, right? It says, and all the proud, which is a future prophecy, right? It says, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble, and the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Yahweh of hosts, that it shall leave them neither root nor branch, right? Because, Esau, Edom, right? Who is the wicked, right? He's going to be cut off, right? His cash cow, like his ultimately, his prize, right? Which is America, right? The Edomites, right, starting with the elites, right? The Rothschilds, Rockefellers, so on and so forth, right? Starting with them, right? America's their cash cow, so that's gonna be cut off, right? That's ultimately their financial life source, right? Is America, right? And that's gonna be cut off, which takes away a lot of their power. And then Yahweh Shai, right? And that's a lot of the financial power, so on and so forth. But see, Yahweh Shai, when he comes, right? He's literally casting down all rule, power, and authority. That's 1 Corinthians 15, verse 24, right? Taking, those crowns, right, and consecrating, all that power, unto himself, right? Receiving his glory here on earth, and that's what's coming, right? This is what this is talking about. Yahweh Shai gonna remove them, right, out of power, right, and set up a righteous rulership, right, in their stead, man, right? It says, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness, right, we're talking about Yahweh Shai, arise with healing in his wings, right? So Yahweh Shai going to come bring healing, man, right? And how is that going to look, right? How is that going to take place, right? By the shedding of these bodies, man, right? The shedding of these bodies, getting rid of, these corruptible, bodies that we're in right now, which are subject unto sin, Scriptures say that, that we shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed, right? That we're going to be changed. Our body's going to be made different, right? Fashioned unto Yahweh Shai's body at his coming. That's that healing, right? Getting rid of this fucking trash-ass body, right? Being made, new, if you will, right? Not getting tired, not being old, right? Being perfect. Right, that's what that healing is gonna be, man. And this, Spirit ultimately took this lesson, in a completely different direction, man. But it says right here, Thwadi Hal Bashem Shah. It says, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow as the calves of the stall. Right, man. Meaning we're gonna be good, man. Fully grown, strong. Healed up, man. We ain't gonna be fucking old and bodies decrepit and breaking, we're not gonna be on that tip, man. We're gonna be perfect bodies, man. What does it say? It's like, I'm just kind of flowing through the Spirit, where it says, wings of eagles mount up. Like, where is that? Salak, man. I was talking about we're not going to be weary anymore, right? We're not going to, be weak. Mount up wings as eagles. Right here, Isaiah 40 and verse 30. It says, but they that wait upon Yahweh Bahashem Yahushua shall renew their strength, right? They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and be not weary, and they shall walk and be not faint, right? So that ultimately right there is showing you, hey, the Lord is going to, ultimately, renew us, man. Because right now, again, we're old and destroyed, and these bodies are terrible, man. Again, we are under a wicked ruler, right? Who's done nothing but destroy the earth. And again, as we, are in this world, right, we're trying to, try to stay healthy, right? We're trying to stay healthy. As the scriptures say in, what is that, Sirach, the 38th chapter, the Lord made medicines out of the earth, and we try to utilize those things, man. Because again, right, we have to take care of this temple. We have to take care of this body, man, while we're here. Because we can't just eat unhealthy, right? We're, ultimately it's part of our culture. It's part of, ultimately, being in this truth, right? Being an Israelite, right? Just in general, right? To ultimately be healthy as possible, But again, right, we're under a wicked ruler who has destroyed everything, But soon, Yahweh Hashem Al-Shah is ultimately going to deliver us out of this place, man. Right? We're going to be healed, right? We're bodies are broken down, stressed the hell out, right? All-time highs, and stress kills, man. Stress kills. But soon this is all going to be done away with, man. This is not our end-all, be-all, man. This fucking wicked-ass rulership, this is not our end-all, be-all, man. Right? Lord, will we be of the elect, man? Hey, the what we got coming with the Lord Yahweh Hashem Shah has prepared for us, man. It's going to be, it's going to be beautiful, man. Greater than we've ever expected. Right? But I'll read this again. It says, but they that wait upon Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shah, shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. I mean, we're going to be able to fly. These bodies could never do that. Right? It says, they shall run and not be weary. I mean, we ain't never going to get tired. These bodies get tired easily, man. Right? It says, and they shall walk and not faint, man. I mean, we're going to have stamina, right? We're going to be of perfect strength, of perfect health, And that healing starts with Yahweh Shai, right? Really, it starts right now with this, us receiving this word, right? Us receiving, this fountains of living water. Right, that Lord pouring out that, that water, right, onto that dry ground, that, as I think it's Isaiah the 41st or 44th chapter, right? Starts with, getting this life, right, this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, That's when the healing started. But the ultimate form of healing is us getting these new bodies and having the second covenant. Established, right? The law, statutes, commandments being written in our minds, man. That's gonna be the ultimate healing. Where this is gonna take place. This precept that we're reading is gonna take place, man. We're not gonna be tired. We're not gonna be broken down. We're not gonna be on bottom, as the scriptures say. Oppress he that hath gotten the victory. Right? Let's grab that. Right here, 2nd Esdras 7 and verse 45. It says, right here, 2nd Esdras 7 and 43. But it's heavy, but I'll hit the point. Verse 43. It says, but the day of doom shall be the end of this time, and the beginning of the immortality for to come. Right? So we're not going to be constantly sick, man. Constantly fighting, right, bro, eating herbs and whatnot, man, taking teas and detoxes and this, that, and the third, and having to do that shit consistently all the fucking time. Like, damn, man, like, are you telling me like that all this food that we eat is that damn bad for us, man? That you got to constantly do a detox, you got to constantly do a, like watching your food and what you're eating, that takes a lot of time, man. That's not something that's easy. It takes a lot of time. It takes, and attention. That's almost a full-time career just in itself, man. Like, but that's because Esau has put so much shit in our food, man. Fucking devil, man. And it's vexing. Having to deal with this shit, man. But hey, Again, right? The Lord Yahweh Hashem Al-Shah is finna undo all this shit, man. You know? Right? As it says right here, it says, for the wherein corruption is past. So, hey, this is going to be done, right? The day of doom, right? The place of this, you know, Esau's rulership being taken away from him. You know? That power being taken away from him. Right? This place, America, right? Being destroyed, right? Via ICBM nuclear missile, which is going to be, you know, that lake of fire that the scriptures talk about. All right? It's going to be here in America. You know? The day of doom, man. You know? That's when, you know, ultimately immortality is going to start. Because at the same time, right, simultaneously, we're reading Matthew's 24th chapter, right? Right after that tribulation, right after, you know, these last two major events, like immediately after, that's when Yahweh Shai is going to come. Right? And the last two events, I mean, you know, Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation, right? You know, which is, you know, the peak of Jacob's trouble being the, you know, mandatory implementation of the RFID micro C-HIP, which is the MO to the ZB. And then what? World War III, right? And in that order, right? Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation, right? Both the same thing. And then World War III, you know? And the peak being what? The use of those ICBM nuclear missiles. And hey, the scriptures talk about that, the elect being scarcely saved, man. Right when those bombs are about to drop, man, the Lord's going to deliver the elect. You know, by the skin of their teeth, you know, you know, and when that day of doom ultimately takes place, hey, that's going to be what? The beginning of immortality for the elect of the nation of Israel, and eventually all Israel, right? As 2/3, right, ultimately born back, right, through the loins of the elect, you know. Verse 4, it says, intemperance is at an end, infidelity is cut off, righteousness is grown, and truth is sprung up. Then shall no man be able to save him that is destroyed, nor to oppress him that hath gotten the victory. So we're never going to be, you know, put in the position where we're going to have to constantly be watching our weight, constantly be watching, you know, our calories and the food that we go, you know, that we eat, while at the same time having to go to work, having to deal with our families, having to, you know, do this truth, right, which is the most important thing. Right, serving Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah. Man, this is just you know, it can get tough, you know. And this is where, you know, we constantly are praying to Yahweh Bashim Al-Shah, right? Because that healing first and foremost comes from the Lord. You know, we gotta pray over your food, you know. Because, you know, Esau be doing, you know, and people, man, they be, you know, doing rituals over the food and prayers over the food and shit like that, you know. So you got to pray over your own food. It's fuck this place, man. Why would you want to stay here, right? IUIC was Lord, we're all going on a video on this, right? IUIC ultimately pulled up talking about, you know, they just finalized their land blitz, you know, and that they're ultimately, you know, they bought the land, this and the third, man. Fuck this place, man. Why would you want the land is defiled, man? The land is defiled. Why would you want a defiled land, you know? No matter where you are, man. You can be in the middle of the country having good ass space. It don't matter, man. It don't matter. This place is defiled, man. The Lord finna destroy this place, man. You know? So we're gonna be good, man. You know? Lord, will we be of the elect, man? We're finna be healed, man. Lord's coming with healing in his wings. You know? And we're gonna be renewed. Right, our bodies are going to be a hell of a lot better, you know. This place is going the fuck down, man. But yeah, the Spirit brought this in a whole different direction, man. You know, hey, the Spirit, you know, leaned on, you know, the exhortation, you know. Hey, but the water Yahweh Shem El Shah putting the Spirit on me to do the lesson, you know. Lord will is edifying. Lord will straight to the point. I'm going to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh. Hashem Yahweh Shah, Hashem Qadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the elder bishops, the elders, the great millstones. Till next time I say shalom.